Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. And as always, we're going to date stamp this. It's year 4, blog number 5, or in legacy numbers, blog number 161. And it's dated the 23rd of the 3rd, 2025. And yes, I normally look out the window, don't I? And actually, we've had a really good week of weather. Not that I've had time to experience it, but more about that later. And today it's a bit overcast, a bit cold. My mother's feeling the cold, so I've put the heater on. But overall, weather's been okay, and my week in general, mixed. I'll tell you what, no, I won't say mixed, I will say challenging. Challenging, there you are. New word, challenging. And we'll talk about that after we get the news out the way, because we always do the news. Now, last week's blog was a bit of a mess, but everybody was really complimentary about it, and so I want to say thanks for that, because I know really it was just all over the place, and the next couple of weeks are probably going to be about the same. You know, many people will know my mum collapsed 2 weeks ago. In fact, 2 weeks ago, last Sunday, I was visiting my mother for the first time in hospital after the collapse on the Saturday. And the following Sunday, which was last week's blog, I had to pick up my mother from the hospital and bring her back and have a whole new regime to how I am now going to work and live my life, to be quite honest, for however long it takes, to be quite honest, in regards to my mother's recovery, which could be slow or non-existent. We don't know. But anyway, the news, and we'll do the war first. And if you remember last week, I actually showed you some of the pages that I go to, you know, to date stamp, and you can see how long it takes to actually look up these web pages. But I've written down here, at least 7 people have been, this is the Ukraine, the war, at least 7 people have been killed, including a 5-year-old child, after Russia launched a barrage of drones targeting Kiev overnight on Sunday, according to Ukraine officials. This is ahead of a ceasefire negotiation in Saudi Arabia, which includes indirect talks on Monday to discuss a pause in long-range attacks on Ukraine. Drones hit apartment blocks and caused fires in several areas of Kiev. Kiev and Moscow agreed in principle a limited ceasefire on Wednesday after Trump spoke with country leaders. Yeah, so this is that continuation of Moscow saying, well, we're just going to continue the war till we've got anything written down. It doesn't matter how many times there are phone calls to Putin, he ignores it and just continues. Most of the radio that I listened to when I was going to do my shopping for my mother, and when I had to go for a long walk on Wednesday, more about that later on, we're all talking about how Trump is actually playing second fiddle. Where he used to be a good negotiator, he's been a terrible negotiator in regards to Putin. I think he's missing the fact that as much as he bends over and probably gives a state of Ukraine over to him, that he will just grow and grow on that. And giving him tariffs and so forth will just basically give him his money back, and his army will grow again, and he will just continue the expansion of Moscow. I fully believe that will happen. I don't think this is a grudge against the fact that Ukraine was part of Moscow and is now a sovereign country in itself. This is how can I expand even further? How can I be a bigger country than I actually am? How can I actually get rid of there's the NATO. How can we get rid of NATO and make the Warsaw Pact the only thing? So yeah, you know how I feel about the war. I just want it to end with peace and go back to normal. And basically, it'll never happen. But you know, I feel that Russia will probably gain out of this, which is unfair, in my opinion. I've written down some notes. What's happened in the UK this week? Just basic little things. Something that appeared in the news this week, which grabbed my interest because it affects sort of me and something that I know is going on. Civil service have been told to slash running costs by 15%. This is something that I know about because I'm in IT, and in IT we have a big, massive sort of not a big, massive budget, but a huge running service cost for hardware. You know, you can imagine all of the courts and the probation officers and the civil servants and everything all having phones and laptops and tablets. So you can imagine one of the big areas to sort of target is IT. And the big problem that you have is, what do you do about cutting costs immediately? And then what can you do in the future? And you have to remember that we've got contracts that have been signed that run for 2 to 5 years. And so cutting those or severing those contracts come with penalties. So there's a lot of work to be done. And all I'm doing at the moment really is trying to find hardware that says it's still in action, but it's not. Which is quite difficult when you consider that certain hardware can be in cupboards in certain departments because they're called pool laptops or pool devices, which are used by many people rather than laptops and devices that are taken home and are switched on a daily basis, which means that they can still be charged for them. But what we have to understand here is that if they're not used very often, should they be there at all, we should reclaim them back. And that requires a big emphasis on our managers to look in these cupboards and say, hey, go through these things, we want them back. Give them back to the people that we bought them or released them from and say, there you are, cut that off of our budget. We don't want them, don't want to be charged daily for them. Thank you very much. So yes, I'm big on in the middle of that one. Other news, England and Wales get off to a good start in the new World Cup qualifiers. Yes, the World Cup is 400 and something days away. I think I overheard one of the commentators say England won their game, Wales won their game, so good starts for those. The big probably news story of the week, other than war stuff, and the war in in Israel and Ukraine are obviously the big ones. Heathrow was in chaos on Friday and Saturday because of a fire at an electrical plant, which basically all of the newscasters were saying just how sort of like difficult it is for Heathrow at the moment because their stability is not there. You knock out a certain area and basically you've got chaos. So they're vulnerable. That's the word I was looking for. And that vulnerability should be handled before I think you have any type of talks about new runways, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if you're relying on one power plant to supply you with power and have no backup, then basically you're asking for trouble and opening up a third runway, possibly therefore a new terminal. So maybe this is a kick up the arse that they need. Santander, another news article, Santander have announced 95 bank closures with a loss of possibly 7,500 jobs. Just the state really of the high street banks in general. Lloyd's have already cut back, so have TSB, so have NatWest, so have HSBC. They've all cut back. I feel for the little towns and villages, to be quite honest, especially old age pensioners. My mother being one of them, and it's amazing. In the next day, they after Santander announced 7,500 job losses, Aldi, I think it was Aldi, the supermarket chain, a huge big one, or was it Superdrug, something like that? They announced 7,000 possible new jobs in the next year as they expand their stores. You'd almost think, right, great. So all those bank staff can go over into those 7,000 jobs. It doesn't work like that. But it's amazing how the numbers were virtually identical. And the last one that was on the news, and it was all over the news on Wednesday, was Gareth Southgate. He had launched a campaign about boys needing role models. Yes, so since he's left as England manager, he's launched a campaign saying that boys need equal amount of airplay, news in regards to their well-being as girls do. So taking away this woke and transgender and all of this sort of stuff, he was saying that boys need role models. They don't need computer games. They don't need a lot of what that's being taught at the moment. We know about equality. We know about diversity. It doesn't take away from the fact that you need strong role models to keep you going. I must admit, in a moment, I'm going to tell you about a sad case. But I looked up to a lot of sporting role models and a lot of scientists and so forth as a kid. Muhammad Ali, as you know, is one of my sporting heroes, which just goes to indicate to you what role models are. I mean, I even looked at science fiction and Doctor Who as being a role model. We don't have those. We keep gender swapping these things. And so, yeah, I do feel a little bit about role models and what Gareth Southgate is doing. It's not supposed to take anything away. We know that boys can't be arrogant and all of this sort of stuff. It just comes as read in the book. But that doesn't mean that you can't have someone like Muhammad Ali in the 2025s as role models. Which brings across the sad case when we talk about Muhammad Ali and boxing. George Foreman was announced as dying on Friday. He was 76 years old. Another great boxer. He was 2 times world champion. My God, the man came back in his 40s and took the the boxing world championship, heavyweight championship, and the world title. There aren't many people that had done that until Muhammad Ali did it 3 times. And him doing it at his age, wow. And, when he left, he became a minister. He was always a religious man. After his sort of bout with Muhammad Ali, which if people don't know now, the big title fight was 1974, and it was the Rumble in the Jungle, and it was one that my dad and I watched many times on telly and talked about, and the tactics that came out of that, and so forth. It's one of my favorite fights to watch, along with many of the Joe Frazier fights. It took me into my boxing sort of like watching of the 80s with Nigel Benn and Chris and Eubank and Watson and all of those fights. Bruno, I watched a lot of it through the Lennox Lewis years and the Tyson years. Now it's become less of something of a spectacle for me to watch. I don't think of it as a pantomime, but I do think of it as each boxer trying to big themselves up and showing their short falls, almost immediately. But anyway, going back to George Foreman, he was an Olympic boxer, just like Muhammad Ali and many other boxers. And like I say, he won huge battles. He didn't win the war very often, but he won huge battles. When you consider when he came back in his 40s, he fought boxers that you'd think he wouldn't stand a chance of. Was it, I think it was Michael Moorer that he won his second world championship at. He always wanted to go against Tyson. I remember that. And this is at that time where they consider boxing to be at its hardest to win. And that's the sad news about George Foreman. He was definitely a character. There's a film about him. There's documentaries about him. Just a character. And of course, how can we forget the George Foreman lean, mean, fighting grilling machine, which I think he made quite a bit of money out of, And do you know what he put his money into? Training his he opened a training gym for the youth, and put all his money into the church and charities. Quite an outstanding guy. All he wanted was just a better than average life, and the rest of the money went into those. So yeah, we'll then talk about my week, and like I say challenging because it damn well has been. As soon as my mother came out of the hospital, occupational health were at my door within 15 minutes. They told us the times, what's been put forward. I get 4 visits a day from a nurse. The times are 7 a.m. till 11 a.m. Till 11 a.m. 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. 3:30 till 5:30, and 6 p.m. till 9:30. That's one visit in each of those time slots, lasting no longer than half an hour. Now, my mother's got a mobility issue, a memory issue, and is incontinent at the moment. So it's very difficult for a son to handle incontinency. I'm sure she doesn't want her son pulling her mother's knickers down to go to the toilet. And the other thing is, with the memory, my mother naturally thinks that she could walk up the stairs and go to the toilet and go to bed upstairs. It's been a problem twice this week. The first time was with the nurse, believe it or not, on Tuesday. We've got something in the notes that says she's got a mobility issue, a memory issue, and an incontinence issue. And therefore, she needs a commode. Right? Now, if you've got all that information, wouldn't you think that you'll have a nurse that would try and stop your mother from going up the stairs? But no, on Tuesday, that happened. And the nurse's reply was, it doesn't say that she can't go upstairs. And I said, it's implied. What do you want to commode downstairs if she thinks she can go upstairs? But it doesn't say it's in the note, she said. And I said, well, get the notes changed. And that's all that we could do. I wasn't angry, it wasn't nasty, I was shocked. My voice became slightly elevated because I couldn't understand why the nurse didn't stand in front of my mother to stop her going up the stairs. We're trying as best as we can, my sister and I, to keep things in place. And the one thing that, is hard to do is get things like gates for the stairwell, especially when you've got a banister on either side, and the gate where it screws into the wall or attaches to the wall is covered by the banister. You need to cut it off with a saw and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it takes time. Then you got to find a gate. So yeah, not great. And if these nurses turn up too close to each other, say one of the morning ones is up until 2 o'clock and the next one starts at 4 o'clock, and they leave at 2 and come back at 4, which means only 2 hours has gone by, then you've got massive gaps between 2 and 9 o'clock when they're turning up for the evening. And that means toilet and pads and all sorts of stuff that is left for me to do. So it's a hard balancing act. So on Monday, I was learning to what we need and all that sort of stuff. I bought some pajamas and a 90 for my mum. I bought some extra sheets. On Tuesday, we had that incident where I said the nurse, they went upstairs. On Wednesday, my sister had to stay all day virtually. I had to get my car down to have its MOT. So that meant taking my car down at 10 to 8, leaving it with them until the MOT was done plus one job, and then drive back, which took all the way till midday. I knew it would take that long because one of the other jobs that I needed to have doing was, because it's been 3 years since it was done, was a service on the air conditioning of the car. You need to have the seals checked and have it regassed and lubricated and so forth. And that requires pressure checks and all sorts of stuff as they push the gas into the cylinder for the air conditioning unit. So I asked for that job to be done if no other jobs needed to be done in the MOT. So the MOT was taken down early as possible, so that the car could be then given to the other side of the garage to have the air conditioning done. So I had to then hang around town, should I say, for a number of hours. I did 10,000 steps. I walked around town for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. I had one cup of coffee. But what I did was I walked around the whole of my town 3-4 times. Yeah, something like that. Stopped in a few shops just to relieve the boredom of it all. Which, was a couple of charity shops and a couple of video stores, game stores, coffee shops. Went into a bookstore. Went in to look at a few trainers, as I'm going to need some soon for my walking. And of course, when I got to the garage, the MOT had been done, but the gassing of the servicing was only just started. So the good news was the MOT, it flew through. Although I do know even beforehand that, and they didn't write it on the MOT because they already told me verbally, that I do need to start thinking about a couple of tyres. They are within the MOT, so that's fine. But they always put an advisory, like your tread is at 2 point whatever it is millimeters and all of that sort of stuff. Now, literally, and I do mean literally, I've done less than 2,000 miles in my car last year, and that's because I work from home mostly. And the year before that was 3,000, and the year before that was 2,500. So I've done about 7,000 miles in 3 years. That's all the time that I've been at the MOJ, my heart attack, my grievance where I was off work for a year. All of that comes into effect, and that's why there is less mileage. So it's good because it means that my car's done less miles, needs less tread. I always used to buy tires every couple of years and have the alignment of the steering done every year and a half. I haven't needed to be so close to that in the last 3 years, but I do know that I had 2 suspension struts at the back a couple of years ago. But what am I trying to get at here? The big jobs, like the clutch that I had done last year, are all done, and that means it's all the minor stuff again. That's it. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. So that's good news because it means less outlay, but my tyres are £118 each, and you usually buy them in pairs. So I've got another bill of about 200 or so quid that I've got to come up with in the next month or so, I would say. Don't want to leave it too late. I'd rather have it done spring, summer, than think about it at the end of summer, beginning of winter. Yes, we do have lots of rain, so I do need to get that sorted. So that was Wednesday. Thursday and Friday was again just all about my mother, getting a regime together, working out how this is going to work next week, because all this week I've had what they call carer, what they call it, carer leave, I suppose is what you want to call it. It's not compassionate leave, it's carer leave, because nobody's died. It's not compassionate. Carer leave. And next week is the time where I'll be working, and I need to sort of like work out how I'm also going to look after my mum, because all this week I've had to change the sheets every day because of the incontinence, and I've needed to therefore get clothes ready for my mother. That means ironing, means washing, means drying, cooking the food. I give her a lunch meal, and I give her an evening meal, and I give her a slice of toast in the morning, cups of tea all during the day. And I can't rely on the nurses to do that, because my mum likes a cup of tea like virtually nearly every half an hour. So yes, it's going to be challenging, and my sister will try and help as best as possible, but she can't drive, and it's 2.5 mile walk and then 2.5 miles back, and we can't really leave my mother. Now the good news is that I've recognised signs of memory, which has been good, and my mother has twice tried to go upstairs and managed to do it, which means that she's getting stronger. But she has problems lifting herself up, and the memory thing, she forgets that to press the button to call me. So I've got this panic button thing here. I don't know if you can see it. It's like a doorbell. She carries a lanyard round her neck. When she needs me, press the button, it rings it in here. You could almost do it with a cheap doorbell that you stick on the doorbell and plug it into the mains. It will connect between the two. You could do it like that. But this one actually sends a signal to my mobile phone as well. It keeps a log of when she presses it. So far, my mum has accidentally pressed it during the night in sleep. So she's woken me up at 4:30 in the morning and 2:30 in the morning. And rarely at all uses it during the night, although she did during a recording of a video I did this week. Which brings me to YouTube, which is, how do I get to do some of my YouTube stuff? And I've managed to sort of like find a way of doing it after 9 o'clock when my mum's gone to bed. When I'm back at work, I don't know how this is going to work. I'll do the best I can. But I've enjoyed my time doing what I can with YouTube, but it's all about my mum. So yes, washing, ironing, all that sort of stuff. All in all, along with the air fryer, the fresher food, door stops, pajamas, nighties, pads. That's a big one. Door stops. All of that sort of stuff. I've spent £300 or £400 of my money to help with my mum, and it's good that I've got some savings to do so. But my savings have took a knock with the MOT costing 160 something pounds with the MOT. Yeah, the air conditioning service was £120, but that's not bad. when you consider it includes the gas and the lubrication as well. So yeah, that's my week. Challenging. Calling it challenge. And I think the biggest challenge will be next week. Does the regime that we've sort of semi-got written down now work in a work time environment? Because I've also got physio on a Tuesday between 1 and 2 o'clock. And each time that I go out, my sister has to be here. So how's my physiotherapy walk going to work? When I have my lunch between 1 and 2, I need my sister to be here. Otherwise, I'm leaving my mum by herself. It's that sort of thing. So thank you all for bearing with me. Thank you all for asking how my mother is. She's in good spirits. She is doing as much as I can get her to do. I've put in the telly on. I'm getting her cups of tea. I'm trying to strengthen her legs by getting her to walk. By the way, Friday was really, really good. Now, it was good and it was bad. It was good in the fact that my mother went and got her hair done at a hair salon on Friday. And you can imagine what that entails. My mother has to use her Zimmer frame to get to my car. That's a stretch in itself. Because she has to go over certain steps, like the doorstep out the front and so forth. Then she has to get in my car. Then we have to drive to where we're going. Then from the car park, which is, by the way, a non-public car park, but I got an okay from the salon to use it. We have to walk from the car park to the salon. I then have to leave her there, drive back, pick her back up an hour and a half later, do the same walk back from the salon to the car park, then back to the car, drive home, get her into the front door over several steps and out the car, by the way, and then walk to the chair for me then to get a commode ready for her to go to the toilet, because by this point 3.5 hours would have gone by. But my God, did my mum brighten up when her hair had been done. And it was a normal thing that she used to do every Friday. So I need to have a word with work and say, how can I get this to work? Because I need at least 45 minutes to get her down to the hairdressers and 45 minutes to get back with only an hour lunch. And then I also need my physio walk. We might have to forget the walk on a Friday and do 4 days instead of 5 days walking for me, and make up the extra half hour here and there. Gotta be a way around this. Gotta be a way around it. But I'm pretty sure they'll agree, me being a carer, that I do enough work, that I make up enough hours. I mean, I'm always starting work, to be quite honest, 40 minutes before I'm supposed to start work, and I always finish dead on at 4 o'clock, and sometimes I go over that. So I'm always giving time to them, so I'm pretty sure they're going to be okay with it all. So we'll move on from my week. I hope you're happy with the little report on my mum. She's in good spirits. She's in good hands, I think, with me and my sister. And we will see how things progress over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a hard slog, and I'm very, very tired. I will say that. I hope I look chipper still, like I say, doing the best I can, because I've also got to change my sheets this afternoon, as well as my mum's bed, so I'm going to be fairly busy. Excuse me. Got a little bit of an air issue there with the drinking. So I'll read out the shout outs very, very quickly, and then I'm just going to check on my mum. I hope you don't mind with that, and then we'll move on to the comments. So thank you very much for all these shout outs. Every single one has cheered me up. It means so much that people are thinking about me, and at this particular time about my mother. There's a lot of things that I can't do. I wanted to go to the arcade club this weekend and just couldn't do it. Isn't it amazing that I was talking about this 2 weeks ago with Alan in his live stream, saying, "Are you going to come along?" And I said, "I'm 95% sure I'm going to, Alan. It's only 2 weeks away," getting quite excited about it. And the next day, my mother's collapsed on the floor. Yeah, it's almost like fate is always against me. I don't know what it is. But anyway, big shout outs to these people. They've all left a comment. Thank you so much. They are Ian Hill, The Ramblings, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, Steve's Gaming, Gans Teeth, Mar Troyd, Wee Babar, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, LGH86, Denny, and Carl Todd. Thank you very much. Like I say, there's a lot of people that will be private messaging me that are not mentioned here. These are people that have left a comment from my blog. And not only that, there was an update that I did as well the week before where there was a lot of names there. So it's an influx of love, I suppose, is one way of looking at it. And I just want to say thank you for all of that. You listen to my blog, which I can't understand sometimes why people do it. It must be pretty boring for you hearing somebody try and change his voice to make it more interesting. You know, I mean, I don't do it on a monochrome sort of like all at one level boring drone. I try and raise the pitch a little bit and so forth and make it interesting, but 2.5 hours sometimes can be a bit of a stretch. But hey, I love doing it. As long as you like watching it, thank you so much. It really is appreciative. So I've got those out the way. So as I told you, I'm going to just check on my mum because it has been 37 minutes. The door chime hasn't gone off, you know, for the panic alarm. But like as I said, my mum's still, I think, working out what it's for. I've told her, "You want a cup of tea, Mum? Ring that bell." Never rung it for a cup of tea yet. So back in a moment. It'll be seconds for you. Won't be a minute. And I'm back, and I've pressed the wrong button, so I'm going to have to do a jump cut rather than I forgot to press pause. Silly me. That's my mind at the moment. It means I'll have to do a little bit extra work after this, which means that this blog will probably go out an extra 10 minutes later. I don't know, something like that. But I'll worry about that at the end. So I've done the shout outs, and that means that there are comments. So let's see if I can get this done, because like I say, I'm not sure when the nurse will turn up. It's now 12:30 and the time of the nurse is 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. So any time now. So I might have to pause again. But here we go with the comments. The first one, in no particular order, is Carl Todd, and it says, "Hi Del, I'm sorry I missed asking a question last week. I ended up working part of the weekend and I had to prep the pond for new fish, so I just ran out of time." Oh, don't worry about things like that, my God. "I was happy to hear that your mum is back home now. I hope that things are improving with her health." Yeah, I've given her an update on there. "I know that there are a lot of changes going on for you, but please make the most of any help you can get. When I went through a similar situation with my mum, it was a big relief to have regular visits by healthcare nurses, and yes, my God, they're a godsend. As much as I said that Tuesday was an eye-opener and a shock to me, most of the time I'm just so glad they're here. Okay, they've turned up sometimes so close together that there's nothing to do. These are all just niggling things. It's the first week, so my God, I can't thank the NHS and these nurses more than I am at the moment. They're just exemplary, brilliant. Last week you mentioned opening packs of cards, and I think that would be fun to see. There is a YouTuber I watch called Calvin Dyson, whose channel is mainly about James Bond. He often opens up packs of James Bond cards. It can be something that I can easily play in the background when I'm doing something else, and it's quite soothing in a way. Last time he got some nice signature cards. Yeah, I don't know about listening without watching because the cards are a very visual element. But I can understand, yeah, you can listen to it and go and listen to all the characters that are being read out. Look, oh, number 12, base card, that's Blowfowl. Yeah, I can understand that. That works. When it comes to opening the cards, this is where I was saying, wow, how expensive it's become compared to how I used to do it. I used to buy boxes of cards and they were about $70 and you got 24 to 36 packs a box, and inside there was 10 plus cards. Some of them would be chase, which is what you want. Now they're $300 a box. You get 12 packs. Inside those packs there are 4 to 5 cards. My God, you wouldn't get a base set, and it costs nearly, in my money, over £200. That's a very costly thing. I wish cards weren't as premium as they are now. They used to be something that you bought with bubblegum. Now you're spending £5 a pack, ridiculous amounts of money, and they don't make them in any in boxes of thousands now. They do them worldwide, possibly 5,000 boxes, I don't know, a couple of hundred pallets of them across the world, which raises their value and the cost of them so high that you have to be a collector to have them. And it's a very niche market. So yeah, I can show off my cards because I've got thousands. Buying new ones and opening them, I'll look into it, and maybe there are cheaper ones that you can buy, some maybe TV ones, film ones, something that's a bit cheaper. But if you want Marvel or sport, they're all done by Topps and Flair and those sort of companies, and they're all expensive. Anyway, you got some questions for me. It says, you just released a video about Lunar Lander Beyond. Yes, I did. Which is an updated, reimagined version of Lunar Lander. Thinking of these styles of updated games, what's your favourite? And are there it says, what are your favourites? And are there any that you prefer over the original game? Not one over the original game. I have to tell that point straight away. Looking at Atari, and specifically Atari, they've done a recharge range and a beyond range. The recharged ones are sort of like vectory based, not all, and are closer to the game with some bolt-ons. The beyond ones have got much more in them, cutscenes, all of this sort of stuff. I prefer the originals. What I wanted, and I started a series, was I wanted to do games that have been re-looked at, to give it a splash of 2025 colour, but not lose what made it such a great game in the first place. In other words, don't take away the exciting element that made it what it was. And I think that they go too far into making it for the modern audience. They won't so Lunar Lander is a perfect one. It's a very expensive game. It's 25 plus pounds, $30 game. You've got more than just a ship that's gravity pulled down to a rocky terrain with only certain landing pads to land on in a vector graphic viewpoint, which is what Lunar Lander was. And now you've got races and flying through hoops and picking up stranded people, opening doors, puzzles, etc., and cutscenes. That makes it modern, but doesn't necessarily make it better. Simplicity sometimes is all you need. Um, and Lunar Lander is a perfect example of a game that I bought for my YouTube channel. Something I thought I'd like because I was a big fan of the original, and I like thrust type games anyway, in a hope that there was something in there that kept the original and added to it with a sort of like a 2025 visual plus point to it. And it failed. I've actually uninstalled it. I don't like it at all. I thought I would. I gave a honest review with a, hey, it's got possibilities, but I played it a bit more for about another hour or two, and it was just more going deeper into a cavern, rescuing some. It was choplifter, bits of choplifter and races and money. In fact, actually, I kept picking up money, right, all the way through the game, because I thought that would be power-ups. Didn't spend 1 credit. There was nothing for me to buy. What was the point in having a coin system if you're not going to use it? And there's all this traits called greed, which gave you more money. So, great. So there's a trait called greed, a system in it called money, and all the way through the game that I'd played so far, didn't spend 1 credit. Waste of time. I didn't agree with some of the comments that came back. I thought the cutscenes were quite well done, but yeah, they get in the way. I wasn't bored of them because I was quite impressed by them, but I totally get the essence of what people were saying about it. I tend to be not quite so harsh. Maybe I should be. That's probably why I'm not a game critic. I'll probably see the good in it. But I saw more bad than good in that game, and I wouldn't give it more than 40% out of 100. Saying that, you want to know which ones I thought were quite good in the recharge range. Yars Recharged I liked. Black Widow Recharged. Caverns of Mars I liked. And Asteroids. All the rest, forget. And in fact, the worst one of the lot, and maybe that's because I'm a big fan of the arcade original, even though I'm absolutely crap at it, and that is Berserk. Berserk is the worst recharged game, and that's saying something when you consider that I played Missile Command, which I thought was a mobile game, to be quite honest. You play that on your mobile phone, pretty bloody awful. Didn't like Missile Command one bit, and Arkanoid was just as bad. I mean, what can you do with Breakout other than make it an Arkanoid clone? So yeah, Breakout was another trashy one. Do more stuff like Yars Recharged and Black Widow, please, Atari. Don't do this other stuff. My God, awful. Your second answers that. Second one was, we all know that you love to collect steelbook versions of films and TV. I wonder, what are your favourite steelbooks based on the actual design of the steelbook? Maybe you could make this into a video and talk about some of them. I've had that idea since I started my YouTube channel. Problem I got is that the house isn't mine and I live, most of my stuff is put into these crates. And you lose track then of what ones are the good ones and what ones are the bad ones. And I'd need to get them all out and catalogued to work out which ones I think are good and which ones are bad. But a few of my friends have turned around and said, you could start doing some shorts, you know. Take a crate, take some of your steelbooks out and say, here's some of my favourite steelbooks out of crate one, and just go like this for a minute and then keep doing that as little shorts. I tend to do that at the end of my blog. So it's not a bad idea, but it's not a fantastic one either, because I do it at the end of my blog, what I bought this week. So if you put them all together, you can see what steelbooks I've got, which ones I've gone, oh, isn't this gorgeous? And I tell you what, there's a gorgeous moment at the end of this video, at the end of this blog. an absolute stunning steelbook. We'll talk about that when we get to it. So it's not a bad idea what I've got that I've had bubbling under for almost since the start of my blog, and I will continue to work towards doing that. So thank you, Carl Todd. Absolutely brilliant set of questions there, and thank you so much for asking about my mother. Brilliant. And we move on to, oh, here we go, War and Peace Denny. That's what I call him now, War and Peace Denny. Although his life has gotten so complex at the moment that his comments to me are slightly shorter than normal, but still as equally as entertaining. So what's my friend Denny put? He's put, hiya, mate. Been thinking of you and your mother this week at work. I hope things are starting to improve with your mother, even if it's just a little bit. Yes, thank you so much, matey, and I pass on all the comments, including yours. Yet another week has rolled around, and like last time, the only thing that's changed is I found out why I've been so low, tired, and pain in my joints. After a blood test, I'm extremely low in vitamin D, so low I've been given a prescription to boost my levels. I can only have 1 tablet a week for 6 weeks, then go on over-the-counter regime for life. Yeah, I think you mentioned it last week, matey. I think that was part of your comments to me last week, and I wish you very, very well with that, my friend. It must be bloody awful for you. But hey, now that they've identified it, maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel for you. I wish there was for me in my sleep deprivation and all that sort of stuff. But hey, it's just a matter of time for me as well. Not much has happened since then, except work was on last night for 12 hours, and I now have a heavy cold. Roll on the summer. Yeah, I think we could all do with some nice bright weather to get rid of this doldrum of dullness. A game that's come to my attention of late that everyone might be interested in is Atomfall from Rebellion. Based in the UK, the game is like Fallout 4. Graphics and atmosphere look amazing. One definitely to look out for. I actually knew of this game, and I nearly bought it. I made the wrong decision. I bought Lunar Lander for my channel. And I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It's an open world. It's one of those crafting ones and all that sort of stuff. But it's a from what I saw of the trailer, it looks very much like it's an investigative story. It's like, what's happened? Find out how it happened. And here's all the puzzles and stuff that you've got to get through to work out what's happened. It didn't look like there were, I agree with you. It looked a bit like Fallout. I'll tell you what it looked like. A really graphical game version of the Avengers, right? You've got these quaint English, it's set in England, which is brilliant, which is why I was going to buy it. It's set in England at a time where something's blown up, and there's all these robots, big towering monolith robots clambering around the little quaint villages that you find. And there's all these tribes, people that are trying to live themselves and survive, that you shoot, like in Sniper Elite, which is another Rebellion game. And it looked very much like it was going to be one of those, right, here's a lockup, but it needs a battery to open up a door. So you've either got to make a battery or you've got to find one. And then when you find it, it opens it up. And then you've got to search through this whole lockup for something like a tool or something that will then take you by the hand to another area where you'll use that tool to open up something else that gives you this extra clue that then takes you through somewhere else where you'll be then firing your gun or fighting hand to hand to get past the tribes of people that are trying to survive. I don't know. It was one of those ones where I went, do I really want this in my life at the moment? And I do, because I'll accept any game, me. but do I want to spend the money on it? Where it's not exceptional in any one area other than possibly graphics. I think it looked lovely, and that's probably me just because of the villages. It looks very much like the village my nan would live in certain areas. And I seriously love going into tunnels and caverns and things like that. I'd find that really enjoyable. So yeah, I do know about it. I don't know if you bought it. I think you said that it's a game that's come to your attention. Like I said, I think it came out this week. So it's something that I'm aware of. So you then continue, my friend Denny. Question for this week. I bought the same book as you last week called Fantastic Television. Fantastic book indeed. Reminds me so much of another book called Ep05. Do you have any recollection of any other gems like these? Now this comes, I actually showed that book off actually to gain your attention, Denny, because it was that book that I told you about that I got at work that a friend lent to me. And I said I couldn't remember what the book name was or whether it was even available anymore. And it's such a sad thing because I'd love to have it. I borrowed it. I had it for about 6 months. I gave it back to him. And I don't know what happened to him or the book or whatever. And I never wrote down what the book was called. It was Fortuitous. I found out what it was. I got it. And I'm so happy to have it back in my collection. There have been other books that people have lent me based on television, but I can't remember the titles of them. So the question actually is already been answered to you in a phone call that I gave you when I was talking about that book. So there's nothing much to add to you other than I've got lots of books. Lots of them are very, very close to my heart. I've got one called Industrial Light and Magic, The Magic of the Movies. I've got a Carry On book that's a definitive guide to everything Carry On, everything that went on behind the scenes, synopsis of the films, how much money they made, what characters appeared in what films, what actors appeared in what films, how the music was done, everything. I mean, it's a brilliant book. And I've got Star Trek books and I've got all sorts. But I do love my reference books. Love my reference books. My Twilight Zone reference book, that Fantastic Television reference book, all sorts. So I'll try and get a list, maybe show off a few more books. They were big for me. And you put here, speak Monday if you're free. Take care, my friend. No, thank you so much, my friend, for all of your love and stability towards me. I will get there. It's just a matter of time. So salute to Denny, and we move on to Ian Hill, The Ramblings. Yay! A very good friend of mine, and he's put, and by the way, he's got a great channel. Go and subscribe to that if you haven't already. My God, amount of times I've said that, but I really do mean it. He's put, hi Dalboy, hope you're okay, and your mum is now settled back in, and she's getting all the care she deserves to have. I think you do a great job, particularly having your own health problems and working. I'm glad your workplace has been very understandable and flexible. They have, yeah, very much so. It was, as usual, a great live. I really enjoyed it this Wednesday. And this Wednesday, it's our 50th episode. You've made it such a pleasure doing them. We will do a bit of James Bond chat to celebrate. Yes, we've been talking about what we would do for the 50th episode. And we've decided that we might do a bit of a theme. So if you can make it along Wednesday, please do. It's going to be entertaining, I hope. Certainly a title that we've got a lot that we can talk about because of the nostalgia aspect of it alone. Now, you sent me a film to watch, and I've forgotten the title. I think it was called Last Breath, matey. Yeah, Last Breath. It was fine, about being trapped underwater, yet some of these streaming films have that feel that they have not been released at the cinema. Not quite sure why it feels like that. Yeah, it is. I think this is that film Last Breath is one that was shown at the cinema but also as a streaming service almost immediately, and it has that feel that it's a high-end streaming film and a low-end cinema film. I think it's because us of an age, this is my opinion only, of an age, used to think that cinema was the ceiling that you could get to, where everything was had to be absolutely fantastic. You know, if otherwise it shortfalls showed up, and TV was that area where you got good entertainment, but it definitely doesn't have that budget or those actors that you'd love to see playing those roles. They would be TV actors rather than cinema actors. But that sort of like dividing line has been blurred to the point where now a film that's at the cinema is on streaming services within weeks and even the same day. I think this was a cinema streaming collaboration in much the same way that BBC are now collaborating with Disney. It won't be very long if things succeed that a title that's on TV will be at the cinema now, because you've got the weight of a big conglomerate studio behind it. So that's my opinion anyway. You put, last night I watched a film I loved. It was called Eye of the Devil from 1966. It was right up my street. David Niven, Deborah Kerr and Donald Pleasance were the stars of the film, and its supporting roles was a young David Hemmings and Sharon Tate, who I always feel sad for, knowing what happened to her. It was a supernatural horror film, which I thought was very enjoyable. Yeah, and just listen to those stars. David Niven, Deborah Kerr, Donald Pleasance, all well-known, established cinema acting stars. Some of them had later on a TV life, but you consider them cinema first. You know, it's like Michael Caine. I always consider him to be a cinema star. You know, it's that sort of thing. I know Roger Moore was on TV, but I still consider him to be a big cinema star, like Sean Connery. So, yeah, totally get it. Just looking where I got to. Yeah, to lighten the mood, I did watch No Sex Please We're British, 1982, starring Ronnie Corbett. This was a great farce that made me laugh a lot. He was very funny. There was also a great cast of recognisable faces of British comedy. Yeah, and I remember seeing that film, but I always thought to myself that it seemed like a 70s film rather than an 80s film. But it's great when you can see a British star on TV at the cinema, and a load of other TV stars like Ronnie Barker or I don't know, John Cleese or Eric Idle or Tommy Cooper or some of those people of that time suddenly turn up in a film. Eric Sykes, Frankie Howard, Sid James, any of those people, absolutely brilliant. So my question this week is that Apocalypse is back again. It's very good because dystopian futures are my thing in cinema as well. So that Apocalypse is back again. So which 5 TV sitcoms would you put in your black bag to watch? All the best and have a reet grand time, because he's from the north. You have to put reet grand time. 5. That's difficult. I've had this question before though. It'll be probably a different 5. Frasier would be there. 11 seasons of Frasier, and I love it. Love Frasier. Porridge. Gotta have porridge. Ronnie Barker. Brilliant. I could have chosen some others there, like Open All Hours and so forth. But Porridge. I don't know of a bad episode of Porridge. Only Fools and Horses, for which I chose Del Boy as one of my as a character name for the channel. I always wanted to be Del Boy. Yes, it's repeated too much on satellite TV at the moment. It dilutes what is a great show because it's on just so much, but it doesn't take away how great it is. I'm going to say Man About the House. If there's ever something where I can't get to sleep, I will put certain comedies on. Porridge will be there. Only Fools and Horses will be there. But Man About the House or George and Mildred would be very close second. They're just funny 70s sitcom comedies, along with On the Buses and a number of other shows that were around at the time. Fantastic shows. So I'm going to choose Man About the House, although any of those would have also fitted in it, On the Buses, all of that. And then another comedy gold is Fawlty Towers. Another one that basically had 2 seasons, hardly any episodes, each one a gem. And you can just watch it and just love it all the time. You don't care. You know what's coming up. It's the characters and the story telling itself that makes it such a great show. So I'm going to choose those. I hope that's a good 5. I'm going to put On the Buses in there. I'm going to put just so many that I could mention that I watch and I love. You know, Open All Hours. Sorry, could put in there. You know, I'm not a big fan of things like Benidorm and that, but I do see the funny side in those things. I just wouldn't put something like Mrs. Brown in there. My God, no. Sorry. All the Mrs. Brown fans out there, just not my thing. Loved the first couple of seasons, didn't like it afterwards. So, salute, my friend. Thank you so much. Take another little swig. And we get to the LFC Gamer and Vlogs. And he's put, as always, Della, great blog. I'm over the moon. Your mum is back home after what has been a difficult few weeks for you. And you've done an outstanding job, all things considered. You deserve a medal, which you both, and I wish you both the very best. It's been quite a while since I've last posted a comment. I've had a lot of renovation going on downstairs, except for the room where I do my vlogs. Replaced tired-looking carpet with all wood flooring and new furniture. Very costly, but worth it, despite my coccyx causing me a few issues afterwards. My mood was, however, soured last Friday, the 14th of March, when the boiler decided to stop working altogether. Thankfully, it got fixed on Tuesday, and it's all good now. Yeah, I wish you well, my friend, and I just know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to all new flooring. We had laminate flooring put down. It doesn't take very long when you get someone to do it, but it's all that cutting and getting it to look nice. It expands and contracts, so you have to have gaps at the edge, and it's all a very complex procedure. But once it's done, it transforms your house. It really does. So I totally get it. Questions for the blog, because I know you love them. Laugh out loud. I do love questions. What is your favourite film from these 5 iconic actresses? Oh, you bastard. Audrey Hepburn, Betty Davis, Joan Crawford, Gene Kelly, and Ingrid Bergman. I know why you've put this in. You love Casablanca and that, don't you? I mean, my God, and film noir. Good job I know quite a lot of these. So that's your question. So let's see, Audrey Hepburn. Probably the one that's the least that I watch of that particular character actress. You've got to have Breakfast at Tiffany's, but that's not to say it's my favourite. Breakfast at Tiffany's is one of those ones that's well up there in the stratosphere of when people talk about film. And one I watch and go, it's all right. I just don't. I'm probably missing the point on it. But One I've watched a number of times just recently is one of the ones later on in her life called Robin and Marion, which starred Sean Connery as Robin Hood and Audrey Hepburn as Marion. And it's the reason I like it is it's so British, but it also has such a sad ending, but so prominent and so different that it raises it above the standard like Robin Hood type fare that Hollywood make. So yeah, I'm going to go with Robin and Marion. You then have Betty Davis. Well, that's a hard one because Betty Davis is one of my favourite actresses of that era. One that I've watched more than all the others that you've mentioned altogether. So I can't just name one. I mean, Dark Victory, such a great film. She basically at the end of that film goes blind. She dies shortly afterwards. It's all to do with disease of the brain. I think it was a tumour that was expanding in it. It's just so sad. The last 30 minutes of that film, if you don't have a tear in your eye, there's something wrong with you. Dark Victory, what a film. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is a later film of Betty Davis, and one that you have to sort of like really applaud for the actresses in that film, and that's Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, because both of them had to, instead of be screen icons where they're beautiful, you know, they got high cheekbones, makeup, gorgeous hair made to the nines, they had to show their age or even older. Betty Davis was certainly looked a hag in it, really. But it's such a captivating film. You've got to have Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in your collection. And let's see, Elizabeth and Essex, because I love the Tudor period of our royal family. So you're talking about Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, all of that sort of stuff. So this one is about Elizabeth I and the Earl of Essex, and the affair that went on. Because if you know, Elizabeth I is known as the Virgin Queen. She never married, never had kids, never had sex, we believe. We don't know. We think she did. So yeah, that's one. Not going to mention any others. There are many others that I like. Joan Crawford. Well, I've already mentioned Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So that's brilliant. She was in a fantastic western called Johnny Guitar. She really did look well and really sexy, Joan Crawford, in westerns. You know, she had that quite busty look and it's sort of like shirt which you'd sort of like do into a crossbow a bit across your mid waist, but she had that sort of like look that suited her to that particular role. Again, Grace Kelly, another one where I really only know them from the films I've liked, and as anybody who knows me knows I love Hitchcock films, and she appeared in 2 Hitchcock films. She was in Rear Window, yeah, brilliant, which was remade by Christopher Reeve years later. But Grace Kelly did an exceptional job in that, and she was in Dial M for Murder, both Hitchcock films. I don't really know too much about her films beyond the Hitchcock films. Do you see what I mean? And that's because I've watched them, but haven't rewatched them in a long time, so they're out of my memory at the moment. When I rewatch them, I go, oh my God, I've seen this. Oh, of course, I loved it, blah, 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 like this. But because my memory is more short-term a little bit now than long-term, I would say, it's a 60-40 split on that. And it depends on what day you ask me. those are the films that remind me of how good Grace Kelly was. And then you got Ingrid Bergman. Now, Ingrid Bergman, again, it's going to be Alfred Hitchcock again. She did Notorious. But how can you not talk about Casablanca, which is a stalwart film for many people that study film? Um, but one of the most captivating performances she ever did, this is Ingrid Bergman, is Joan of Arc. Again, a historical film. Don't know what it is, I just like historical films. So that's brilliant. Great question. Thank you very much for that. You've got several more here. Have you ever switched off a game because you got fed up with the overabundance of cutscenes and lacking in overall gameplay? All the time, matey, and too many to actually mention. Starfield, this lunar lander I've just had, just perfect examples. And the last one you put in is, as you're a Coventry supporter, do you sometimes watch some of the classic matches on YouTube? And or if you're watching the big match revisited on ITV4? I think it's on that channel. I found one game where Coventry hammered my club, Liverpool, 5-1 at a Highfield Road back in 1992. And Mickey Quinn, what a player he was, and absolutely he was. And I think I've got the program to that game. I did actually go to it. I loved it. It was a brilliant game. I saw them play Newcastle and a few other Premiership teams and players. I could probably go on quite a bit more, but those ones come to mind, and I hope that answers your question for you. Now, again, 30 or so minutes has gone by and I need to check my mum, but this time I'm going to hit that pause button and I'll be back in a couple of minutes to finish off the comments. Yeah, we're nearly at the end of the comments, so we're making good progress. Won't be a moment. And I'm back, and then she's got a cup of tea, but I've noticed that it's getting to the point where I've got to make my mum a dinner. And good, thank God for that air fryer. So I'm going to get to the end of the comments and do that, and then I'll come back again and continue. So yeah, sorry, it's all going to be a bit bitty. My mum takes preference though. Hope you don't mind. So yeah, lovely memory, by the way, LFC, for the Coventry game. That particular game, I'm pretty sure I saw, it was in the early 90s, so I was going. My dad and I went sort of like between 1982 and 95 to most Highfield Road, to a lot of Highfield Road games. And I do remember some of the big wins, and that one was one. There was another one against Newcastle. Forgotten whether it was Shearer was in one of those games, because I remember my dad saying he was a goal-hanging bastard. That helps you. Salute, my friend, and we moved to Steve's Gaming. My great friend Steve, you bastard, fucking hate you, you little shit, you're such a good channel and all that bastard things I have to keep saying. Yeah, that it's just the law for me to do that now. I have to apologise, but it'll be recognised at the bottom why I need to apologise at the end. It's got, hi Del, great blog as usual. I'm glad your mum is back home where she belongs now, and I hope things are not too stressful for you. They're very stressful, I have to say, at the moment. But it's manageable. So it's Thursday now, and this week has been very miserable. Lots of neighbour landlord stress and an awful news about the government, and now their hatred of the disabled is going to badly affect and possibly kill many. A friend of my mum has a physical and mentally disabled son who cannot wash or dress himself, and according to what she said, he's on £600 a month, and if these cuts go through, they'll take £416 a month off of him. This is something that I commented on about 6 months ago, where the government were trying to force people back into employment, and how they were going to do it by forcing the people that are of disabilities back into work. And I was against it sort of then. I have to tread a line here because I work for the government, but I I think I'm happy enough to say that I wasn't happy about what was being said. How the hell is someone is supposed to survive on under £200 a month? It's despicable. It's always the poor and vulnerable who suffer. And then I heard about Eddie Jordan dying. Yes, I did as well. And that was so very sad. I remember when his Jordan F1 team appeared in the F1, and his Jordan 191 car is one of the most iconic and beautiful cars of all time. He also brought Michael Schumacher into F1. And overall, he was great. He didn't stay on the fence like most F1 people now. If he thought something was wrong, he'd tell you. A sad loss, and I hope there is a tribute to him this weekend for the Chinese Formula One race. And that's the thing here. Such a sad case, and I didn't bring it up at the RIP section of this because I knew that this was in here. As soon as I heard about Jordan's death, I knew that you'd be mentioning it, Steve, because we both have a passion for Formula One. We both have a history of watching it in the late 70s all the way to now, and all the changes that we've seen and the people that we've seen go, and die and over the years. I haven't seen the Chinese Formula One race. I have watched the prep for it. I've watched the sprint race, the qualifying. I don't know the result, and it's all because, I'm a bit behind with things because of what's going on in my life at the moment. But I'm looking forward to that this afternoon while doing the ironing, I dare say. As for questions you've put, I refer to the questions I posted last week because I'm too lazy to think of any new ones. Anyway, I wish you and your mum all the best. And that takes me to my apology because, yes, I was reading things so quickly I missed Steve's. It was actually buried. It was under... I had to click on the word newest for it to appear. So this was last week's message from Steve. He put, "Hi Del, great blog as usual. I really hope your mum improves and is allowed home soon. Hospital sucks so much and I'm sure she'd feel happier nearer you. As for her memory problems, I totally sympathise as my mum is going through the same problem right now. And wow, your neighbour, what a bitch. It seems you have selfish arsehole living next door, just like we do. Bad neighbours can make your life a damn misery." Anyway, on with the questions. Question 1, so here we go with the questions. As a kid or teen, did you ever wrap silver foil around a match head and then throw it in the fire and wait for a bang, or was it just me? I don't think I ever did that, although I know of people that did. You know how it is where you go to a fireworks display where there's a big fire, or you've got a fire going on in the garden, you go out and see your dad and you say, "Dad, what you burning?" and all this sort of stuff. And you know full well as a kid that you're not supposed to put certain liquids and things, like you don't put a battery in a fire and all that sort of stuff. And I'm pretty sure that I broke the rules once, putting something in that you shouldn't do to see what had happened, see if a little mini explosion would go on or some firecrackers or something. I remember doing something I shouldn't do, but for the life of me I can't remember what it was. But it was bad, I know that because I was sent to bed. Question 2. What is your next planned game purchase for PC or console? I wish you all the best, my friend, and I hope your mum is improving and will be home where she belongs as soon as possible. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's an interesting question. What is your next planned game purchase for PC or console? Because as you know, although I never mention it, we've got a little bit of an unresolved situation in regards to the laptop. I'm not really thinking about games too much. In fact, I only thought about it because the Steam sale was on during my week off and me looking after my mum. So I bought a couple of games, but I didn't look at the AAA titles because I'm struggling to find time to do Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. What games will be coming out in the near future that are AAA or indie? Well, the indie, I never know, although I'm looking forward to Jeff Minter's iRobot, that's for definite. That's one that I've got listed down as a must. You see what I mean? But I'm not sure. In fact, I think Denny is probably more on the mark with games than I am. He's mentioned a couple that I haven't bought. There's Hammer Watch 2, and he's talked about that one just now that I mentioned earlier on. And, you know, they all sound exceptional titles, and I haven't looked to see about buying them. It's just been all too much with my mum. But I will do, because I love games. I never really think, though, too much about my Switch and PS5. Always the PC, because the PC is sitting right next to me, next to my telly. Plus, if I put the console on, I can't watch telly. So I can watch it, I can sort of play a game and listen to the telly, or whatever. So it sort of like works better for me on the PC. It's probably why my PC is my gaming platform of choice, as it were, next to my Mister, because the Mister also broadcasts itself on the monitors in front of me without having to use my telly. So yeah, I'll have to think about that one, matey. But it's like, I dare say you'd have the same difficulty. What's going to be your next purchase? Because I've been watching your channel, as I do every week, and right now you're in a dilemma. What role-playing game am I going to play for my channel? And you've listed out no end of different names of titles, and each one you've been turning around and saying, that one's too long, that one's too janky, this one's too short, this one's too... It goes on and on and on with a list of things why you won't buy it. But I'm not quite sure how it works, though, really, in regards to games too long. You can always stop your stream or video in regards to this game just didn't work out. Because if you were going to do Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and that's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So, and that time spell was not a consideration when you were thinking of doing it. It's only a consideration now because you haven't got it to work. And I'm still here to help you with getting it to work if you ever want me to help. It's just a simple matter of working out what the issue is. And I do know that there's a lot more now in the forums that are telling you what it is, and it might not be totally driver. It could be BIOS related, which I mentioned before, actually, the last time we talked about it in my blog. So I'm looking forward to your next role-playing game title. And it's one that I haven't got in my collection either. And if you've got a cheap key, I'd be very interested in knowing where that key came from. It might be something that I'd like to play along with you, you know, watch your channel and then play along. That might be quite good for me. Purely on the basis that I've got so much other stuff going on in my life at the moment. So, yeah. But whichever way we look at it, salute, my friend. I hope you're having a fantastic week next week. I hope you enjoy the Formula One that's already happened. And you're just having a fantastic life at the moment. Your channel is just iconic. It's just what I have to watch, you know. And we move on to Gans Teeth. So salute, my friend Steve. Gans Teeth says, good to hear your mother's might be getting home soon. You're doing an amazing job getting the house sorted while trying to cope with your own health issues. Yes, I am, and thanks very much. That's such an inspiring thing to say to me, Gans Teeth. I don't get too much of that. And yeah, it's difficult being by yourself sometimes. You know, at the moment I've got my sister, but she's finding it difficult. So for the majority of the time, it is just me and my mum. So, you know, but my sister's been a godsend, to be quite honest. We move to Martroid, who's left 2 comments. He's put, I've been watching The Electric State 2, Del. I think that's a TV show. I must admit that I thought it was going to be naff, but it's turned out enjoyable, good fun. And you've also mentioned I'm only 30 minutes into this. This is the blog that you're talking about as I type. And I just wanted to say that you're doing an amazing job at prepping things for your mum's return, Del. You're a good son. Also, I've heard that those Ninja air fryers are pretty amazing. I'd love to get one of those at some stage. And I tell you what, my God, they are. That's just what I'm going to do after I've read out these last remaining comments, because I've noticed that it's sort of like 1:30 and my mum really ought to have something to eat. So I'm going to get this sorted now and move on. But thank you very much, Martroy, for your comment. We move to Wee Bob Art, who's put all the best, Del, and hope you got all sorted and your mum home safely. Cheers for answering my question. And I was playing a very Sims-like game while listening called Project Zomboid. I've mentioned it a few times. I've hundreds of hours of play in that game. Anyway, I didn't put any context of this weekend as I was working, and I just didn't have the time. I will try to quickly come up with a question as tiredness strikes. Project Zomboid, is that isometric zombie game where you just got to survive and you have to go into each house and pick up clothes and stuff? If it is, I've got that game. I loaded it up, played it for a couple of hours and found it so complex that I stopped. And I'd love to know, is it worth carrying on? Because I keep meaning to put it back on and play it again, and I just haven't got round to it. It was so interesting, it was like doing stealth kills to zombies, like climbing over fences, wearing soft shoes so that you couldn't be heard, carrying the certain type of backpack that makes you venture out a bit further. It was a very interesting game. I'm pretty sure that's Project Zomboid, Question. Airwolf is a Commodore 64 game I found in my collection the other day, and one of my ones from my childhood as well. I found it in my collection the other day. What is the most obscure famous vehicle from TV or movie that you can think of? ? Perhaps, and off the top of my head, so you've put perhaps, and off the top of my head, it would be Inspector Gadget's helicopter hat, if that is a vehicle, or perhaps the TARDIS, again, not really a vehicle. Anyway, best wishes for the days and weeks ahead. That's a difficult one. I remember the time machines that we used in Day of the Tentacle on the PC. I loved all the cars in Wacky Racers, but I can't remember in the game whether the different type of cars had a special ability to them like they did in the TV series. Inspector Gadget is perfect because, he's got a hat. And if you've ever seen the cartoon and the game, you'll know that the hat transforms into this sort of like framework where he grabs hold of two handles and he can take off with his hat. Always wondered why the hat still stuck to his head. But I just took it that it came out of his head in the first place because he is a robot type thing. That's why he's called Inspector Gadget. But yeah, it's very difficult because Kit is a car, so that's not one. Streelg is a bike, so that isn't one. Airwolf is a helicopter, an exceptional one, but it's still a helicopter. Same with Blue Thunder. Same with so many other, Firefox is a jet. We have to turn to cartoon and that sort of stuff, but a vehicle. Spider-Man's web swingers, web cartridges, his web shooters. Is that a vehicle? It's a method to get across from one place to another, and he uses it as a vehicle to get somewhere. So yeah, you could say that. The Hulk jumps, as you know. The Avengers have a Quinjet. That's nothing new. That's a difficult one. I'll have to come back to that one, wee Bob. But what a question. Fantastic. Spy versus Spy has not got vehicles in it, really. they fly in and out of their of the island by using a plane. But the tools they use to trap each other is brilliant. Yeah, difficult one. Thank you so much for that, though, and salute, my friend, and thank you for wishing my mum well. Brilliant. And we get to the last two. One from LGH86, which is my cousin. Blaine really loved seeing all your Marvel figures at Christmas. Yes, just after Christmas, I showed him that stuff that I'm going to present to you guys, which I ordered from AliExpress. It's been that long that they're still here in boxes. Still haven't got around to doing the video for it, but it'll happen. And Blaine, being as young as he is, really loved me taking them out of the box and showing him. So that was great. And my last friend is Colin Jones, aka Ponder, who's written a comment. He's put, I know things aren't going to be the same, but I hope things settle into some sort of routine for you soon. Moving that bed alone isn't something I'd want to do for sure. Well done for getting that done, and I must admit that was one of the highlights, and so glad I managed to. It was a win. Do you see what I mean? It was one of those wins that I don't think I'd be able to do it again. It really did hurt my back and shoulders and so forth. What you're saying about your mother's mental well-being actually sounds like it's my worst fear, and while memory may get worse, it would seem her reasoning is still sound. If this is the case, it will make things a lot easier for you in the future. Not going to shout out though about your autofocus problem. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yes, brilliant. I did used to be a train spotter in my late teens. I found collecting numbers pointless. I obviously have some affinity for trains, but don't go out of my way for special these days events. Those I still appreciate the older trains, especially steam spotters, though they can be a nuisance, but we won't go there. Yeah, we had the Flying Scotsman go through a number of times through Bicester on its last journeys. That was interesting. I did manage to go out and see that. It's a mad, 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 mad world. Now there's a film. Oh yeah, for definite. I'm glad I mentioned that one. The Commodore 128 is a really decent computer, but even though the VDC was a bit unreliable, it was really let down by a lack of support. That's what I was trying to say. This is probably because it was released too late, just like every other late 8-bit release. So many good late 8-bit computers that went nowhere due to 16-bit being the new shiny. And I was guilty of following that path too. Yeah, and I took that into consideration. It's just that the Commodore 128 came out in 1985. The Amiga was a 1985 computer, but really didn't take off till 87. And the Atari ST is an 85 machine that took off heavily in 86. It did have, I think, 6 months where it could have done something. I believe that the problem is that Marvel just didn't have the hardware to move things around very often. So I just think it's a missed opportunity. There are a number of Commodore 128 only titles, like Elite, that really show off what you could do. And that should have happened like the Spectrum did. I'm with you though. I think it was out a year too late. A year too late. It'd have been out in 84, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You mentioned there's a new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game being released in the near future on PS4, 5 July 11th. Now that it interests me once. Can't read that. Not that it interests me one, but if you mentioned it and I remember the article, I don't know what that means. But what I do know about Tony Hawk's, they're talking at the moment on the Gadget Show even about each Tony Hawk's game has been a major way to use that particular disc or game to hack into consoles to be able to crack the ability to be able to crack other games to make it work on a jailbroke system. So yeah, time will tell whether the new remaster of Tony Hawk's 2 and 3 has that. I'm impressed you managed to get through so much with so much going on. Well done. And I hope the future goes well for you and your mum. My question, if you did manage to get a 3D printer, that is an if, what would be the first thing you'd print? Oh, easy. Very, very easy. I've got some of these trays, right? These come out of my computer tower, and they've got these clips, and they're not clips, they're spongy springs. They snap off, and this is where your hard drive goes in. It's a hot swappable drive. You attach the hard drive in there with the cables sticking out from the end, and you just slide it into the bay, but they snap. I'd make a no end of those, because most of mine are snap now, so they just slide in and out, nothing to make them click in place. And then Marvel figurine figures. I'd make 2-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch and 12-inch versions of all my favourite characters, and then hand paint them, because I've always wanted to do some Warhammer type things, but I've never thought I was any good. Do you know what I mean? To get a eyepiece that you could zoom in and paint all that intricate work on a little lead figurine, I'd definitely have a go at that with Marvel. And that's the end of the comments. So we're now going to move forward into what I watched on YouTube as soon as I've made my mum something for dinner. So do bear with me again. It shouldn't be too long. It's an air fryer. It takes about 8 minutes. And I'll be back. Thanks very much for bearing with me. Like I say, mum comes first. Hope you don't mind. Won't be long. And we're back, and yeah, lots happened since I went away. I had to get my mum something to eat, and then my sister's turned up. Had to explain to her that the nurse hasn't arrived. Second time in exactly the same time slot, and had to explain to her a little bit about my mum going upstairs. So sorry about that. It's not a wait for you. But it is something that I had to get out the way with my sister. So we've got the comments out of the way, and thank you very much to all of those people that left a comment. We're going to move on to now what I watched on YouTube. And as you know, I have 3 mainstays, well 4 really. That's This Week in Retro, Tech Moan, Gadget Show and Chronologically Gaming. And like I say, there've been some good stuff this week that I've watched. So This Week in Retro had 3 titles: Show Me Where It Hurts, Windows 3 Shows Its True Colours, and Letting Out the Magic Smoke. So a lot of those things I've actually experienced. Windows 3 shows its true colours. Absolutely amazing that Windows 3 now can have true colour, high resolution on a old style PC. You never used to be able to have resolutions that high or that many colours. Brilliant. Letting out the magic smoke. I'm pretty sure we've had something that we've plugged in that hasn't been used for a while, and the plume of smoke that comes out. So all of this is all great stuff. Absolutely fantastic. It was really good to see Tech Moan back after his wait. You could tell in his voice that he's not fully there yet, but he did card radios, which I hadn't actually heard of. Card radios. These are radios that are no thicker than a credit card. They were a thing of the 90s. They came in FM, AM, combined FM and AM with calculators on the other side. You can imagine. He showed several off which used watch type batteries, and one even a rechargeable one. And he had the fortune of the first one that he bought as being a £5, when it should have been much more expensive than that. And this was after a week of it only being on the market, so he got an absolute bargain at the time, and he's therefore loved them since, just to play around with. They're not particularly the thing that you'd buy now. It's just old tech that I like to look at. The Gadget Show had a number of things that happened this week. You've got tech myths busted, so all of those tech myths that you've heard of. Absolutely, I'll let you watch it to actually find that out. The future is solar. talking about solar power, which is quite a good thing, and then cheap versus expensive DIY multi-tools. And that was interesting because I've got a multi-tool, and I've actually got the one that they were actually looking at, which is a DeWalt multi-tool. So that was interesting to me. And I believe that they've just done another one, cheap versus expensive, in regards to drive cleaners. You know, the ones that get rid of all the weeds in your driveways. That's interesting. Be glad to watch that in full later on today. And Chronologically Gaming is just brilliant because I'm into my gaming, as you know, and they're still in November 1982, which has been on now for several months. It seems like no end has come out across the world in November 82 across many systems: VIC-20, Atari, Tomy Tutor, all sorts, IBM, Apple, all the good ones. So brilliant. All of those I subscribe to, and if you're into any of those, I suggest subscribing to them as well, or even just giving the odd one a look. They're quite good. Then there's a couple of others. Comic Tropes, After Dark. I've heard of Comic Tropes. I hadn't heard it done an After Dark. Was an interesting one this week because it was talking about Stan Lee. Apparently there's a Kickstarter that's just been brought up called the Stan Lee Elder Abuse Documentary, and he found it a rather weird thing to try and do and a bit icky, and I have to sort of agree. Apparently this guy had unprecedented access to Stan Lee in his later years, where he was going through a number of court appearances where he was being abused by his nurses because he was in his 90s. And this guy kept quiet so he could do this documentary. Why he didn't actually voice his opinion at the time, again, I mean, when you see an elderly guy being abused by nurses and stuff, these people would have got prosecuted. He waited until the statute of limitations ran out. Bloody awful. I think that's an awful thing. So yeah, I feel the same about him. Then there was an interesting one, just because I'm into, Elton John's one of my favourite keyboardists. It's from a guy called, and his channel's the same, Pierre Pistelli. Piscitelli. The episode was called Secret Behind Elton John's Piano Sound. Now, I've been to a number of his concerts, and I knew that although he uses Yamaha pianos, he uses, obviously, lots of equipment to boost the sound. And he's got a preference to the Roland piano sound. So Elton John actually uses two rack patches, one Roland, one Yamaha, and it's 70-30 split, 30 Yamaha, 70 Roland. Put the two together and you've got Elton John's unique sound. May sound a bit old now, the piano sound that comes out of Elton John's piano, because there are so many other pianists that are now using similar patch routines to get that unique sound for themselves, like Billy Joel and so forth. But it was very interesting anyway, and to know that this equipment is out there and you can actually buy it because it's old equipment. The two devices, the Roland and the Yamaha, are, I think, in the under £1,000 bracket now. But even so, that's £2,000 out of my out of my sort of like price bracket. And then the last one was Slope's Games Room. Now, I've heard of Slope. I've watched his channel a couple of times, number of times, but I don't watch him religiously. But I do whenever he's doing a new scammer episode, because they're usually quite long and they're usually something that I'm quite interested in. And this is about the Super Sega, which I'm sure everybody's heard of by now. This Spanish or foreign guy that basically says that he can come out with a console that will play every single Sega game under one console. That's the Dreamcast, the Game Gear, the Mega Drive, the Master System, everything Sega's ever done in one machine. and it's an obvious scam now when you look at it, but it's always interesting to watch those videos. So that was brilliant. So that's watched on YouTube. And then we've got film, TV, and soundtrack YouTube. So I've tried to split these up as best as possible. And we've got my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings, and oh my God, the amount of stuff he's brought out this week, it takes up quite a big chunk of my pad. He's done the top 5 crime films from 2002 to 2008, Doctor Who Arc of Infinity review, Heretic 2024 Blu-ray review, X-Files Season 3 Episode 19 review, packages from eBay and Music Magpie, Why I Love Collecting Annuals live chat, which I found very interesting because he does it off the cuff, and I think that's probably the best way to do it. But I know an awful lot about comics and annuals. Some of the information in there a little bit out of date because comics have had annuals for years. They haven't been the hardback book though, and given at Christmas that we in the UK loved. So he was quite true about that. So there was the Beano, the Dandy, the Topper, the Shootist, all of those TV shows. Looking Annual, all of those sort of things. They really were sort of like, seemed to be a niche and something that we in Britain enjoyed compared to America. Comic book annuals in the States, Spider-Man's had an annual since 1962, so it's not like it's unique. But theirs were double-sized, glue-bound annuals. And so looked just like a comic book, but you basically got double your content, plus a lot of extras, artwork in there, little articles and all that sort of stuff. So it is very similar, but not the same. But like I say, annuals is not unique to Britain, but it is in a way that we did it. When Marvel UK came over here, they followed suit with our love of the hardback edition. So he showed off a number, but he didn't show off any Marvel ones. They were all DC or TV or comic book from the UK, like Beano and Dandy. So it's a bit shame that Marvel wasn't represented there either. But they were mostly done by Grand Dreams in the 80s. Annuals seem to be produced by just a couple of publishers. So yeah, but it was nice to relive all of that. So that was brilliant. And then of course he did a live with me which I absolutely love. It split up my week. It was very difficult this Wednesday with my mother and getting her to bed. I had to keep going back and forth, but he was very gracious about it. And I'm hoping that things settle down into a more routine. But we had a great time. That was all that matters, is we had a great time. And we're going to have a great time this Wednesday with our 50th episode. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm always going to say thank you. And my friend Ian Hill, such a great supporter of me. Fantastic. Then there's a couple of my friends here. Playtendo Guy did a live gameplay of Split Fiction, a game called Split Fiction, with his partner Amy. That was wonderful to watch. I couldn't stay for the whole 3 hours, my God. But it would have been wonderful for me to have stayed. And I got great enjoyment what I watched. He also did a couple of shorts where he did the actual unpacking of Split Fiction, which is a PS5 game, by the way, and Xenoblade Chronicle. So some great stuff there from my friend Pete, Playtendo Guy, brilliant. Unfortunately, I didn't see anything from Mondo Chelovic Movies this week. But then again, he's brought out so much content the last couple of weeks. My God, the man hasn't stopped. Nice to have a bit of a break. He'll be coming back with a title that I'll be showing you a little bit later on. I'm pretty sure this week he's got to have done that. I know he will have bought it, so I'm really looking forward to know his opinion of that particular title. But more about that later on. Jim Jam Movies is also taking a break, and I just want to say I wish you well, my friend. He's given me the reason why he's taking a break. Totally understandable. Absolutely fantastic guy. Met him. We had a great time when we were in Birmingham. and I just wish him well. Sometimes you've got to take breaks. Sometimes you've got to move away from YouTube. You've got to regroup. But in this particular instance, when it's a family member and all that sort of stuff, you just have to, you know. There's going to be a time where that'll happen in my blog. So far, even with my heart attack, I've managed to keep going. Probably, if my doctor knew, he would have said, "You stupid person." But I don't know what it is. I feel I need to. But there we are. That was a choice, and I made it, and I lived by it. So there we go. We've got my friend Through the Lens, Josh, who came into the chat as well when we were Ian Hill the Ramblings. He was actually in the text chat. He's done an episode called Novocaine Surprised Me review. Now, I don't know too much about Novocaine. When I saw it come up, I thought it was the Steve Martin Novocaine film where Steve Martin is a dentist and is solving a crime or committing a crime. I think this is a newer film. It's only just come out. Interesting to know, therefore, what that's about. And then I'm going to go back to his review because I like to see the film before I see his review because he's very, very good with his reviews. And you don't want to know too much about it when you're going in and have your own opinion or something. So I'm looking forward to that. But definitely worth a watch and a subscribe to Josh at Through the Lens. And then just for a laugh, Don Monroe, who I watch every now and again, probably every 2 to 3 weeks. He did, it's called Don Monroe Movies, Music and Monsters, by the way. That's his channel. He did 2 that I had to watch because they were 2 films that I've got a great understanding of. They were What Happened to Galaxy Quest, and there is a big documentary on Galaxy Quest, so I was interested to know whether he was going to add anything that isn't in that documentary because it's an amazing documentary. And then he did a Just My Opinion on a film, Planet of the Apes, but the Tim Burton 2001 version. So, of course, I wanted to know what his opinion of that is because I'm a big Planet of the Apes fan. And I like to hear about all of the good, what his opinions are of the classic ones and of the modern, newer ones, with Tim Burton sort of being the middle ground between the classic and the modern. Well, it is now, anyway. So that was all to do with TV and soundtracks. Didn't listen to too many soundtracks this week, although I will probably mention some next week. And we get to my friends who I've known for years that are in my Discord or in Mainmeister's Discord, which are channels that I found through knowing Alan and just by discovering friends on my channel itself as well. So we got Down the Rabbit Hole. Brilliant. He did his OB Windows, moving the start button in Windows 11. Yes, if anybody knows about Windows 11, the controller bar is at the middle bottom of the screen. And anybody that used Windows 10 and before had the start button at the bottom left. Ever since Windows 95, really, Windows 3.1 didn't use that mechanism. But somebody asked the question, how do you move the start button? He explained it. It's really quite good. It's sort of like similar to that idea that I said that I was going to do a couple of shorts on things that you can do in your PC that will improve space on your machine, stability, little snips that I've learned through the years that people might not be aware of. So that was great. And he also did Namco's Questa on MAME. So there's a game, bit like Arkanoid, that he wanted to show off, and it's a bit of a mix of Arkanoid and Pac-Man, believe it or not. And that was very entertaining to watch. And it talked about some of the shortcomings that you have with an older MAME cab, a multiple arcade machine emulator, by the way it stands for, when you don't have a spinner or a paddle, because it's digital. So that was quite good. Really enjoyed that. Absolutely fantastic to watch Down the Rabbit Hole. A must watch as far as I'm concerned. And then we get to Robert's Retro Gaming, which is gaming royalty of Canada. What can I say? Always a great watch. And the stuff he comes out with, here we go. Here's just a snippet, look. No Man's Sky, episodes 28 and 29, so that's 2 episodes. Subnautica, episode 19. Atari 8-bit gameplay of games called Fidget, Beetlejuice, Webster, and Mig Alley Ace. They also did an Atari 2600 gameplay of Ghost Manor. So there's a load, and even today there was a one that's released on Sunday, but of course I'm prepping my blog, so I haven't seen that one yet, but it is a Spectrum game. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and it'll probably be mentioned next week. Thank you, my friend Robert. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. Can't wait to see the rest of your stuff this week coming. Steve's Gaming, who I've already mentioned. You bastard, your channel is just too good, you little shit. It's just the rules. I have to do that. He's done. Here we go. How Not to Play Elden Ring Part 37. Home soft discs numbers 46 and 47. Super Cobra on the Sword M5. And some new Spectrum games. And every single one of those, an absolute winner. It's a shame a little bit about Elden Ring. Although, to be quite honest, I wasn't watching it as closely as I was at the very beginning, because I was thinking, oh, I might buy Elden Ring. But I thank God for his channel, because as I continued to watch it, I knew really there's no real point me buying it. You do get a grind in the game, and you do find a point where it's just really, really hard, and it just comes up with brick walls. And I know that I'd probably find those quicker than he does. He's much more of a game player than I am. I wish I could be as good as Steve's gaming. And that's a compliment, Steve. And like I say, the home soft discs are great, even though he considers that he doesn't put enough time into the games. I look at them as being, oh, that one looks interesting, I think I'll play it myself type thing. So I do find a great benefit of those. And Super Cobra was just eerie, because my one of the things that I've mentioned before, chronologically gaming, had actually done that only a couple of days before. And my friend Alan Mainmeister has a Sword M5 as well, and it's just amazing to see what the Sword M5 could do when it was such an early computer. It really is amazing what some of these older computers can do. So that's my friend Steve's Gaming, and I really recommend that you watch him. And he's just about to do a new series of role-playing games that he's going to do an episodic thing of. He makes me feel jealous, really, because I haven't been able to do anything on my channel. I feel I could do more, and then I'm finding I'm very tired, or I can only do it at night. And it's just depressing, therefore, that I can't get out the content that he can. Probably explains why sometimes I look at the numbers of my channel, but I do what I can when I can. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Couldn't see much from my friend Colin Jones, aka Ponder, this week, but he's had a busy week because he's gone on a road trip to the arcade club in Bury, which I wanted to go to. So I'm expecting his blog and a few snippets about that this week coming. You've got, therefore, my friend 20th Century Gaming. He did a couple of videos live this week. He did Gravitron 2, the later levels, because he's so good at Thrust type games. My God, Gravitron 2 is such an amazing game. It just shows you why Lunar Lander is something that I've uninstalled on my machine. It's just ridiculous. It's literally a pence game. I mean, I think it's like £3 or £4, no more than that. Been out for ages. Looks not too dissimilar to Lunar Lander or Thrust, but much more modern with its glowy neon look. But the animation and the deviousness of the levels, my God. Gravitron 2. If you haven't got that in your collection, I don't know what's wrong with you, to be quite honest. And he also did a live on the Commodore 64 of games done by Neil A. Bate, and that name is synonymous with my gameplay of the Commodore 64. I played a lot of his games: Paperboy, Airwolf, Fall Guy, Cockatini Wilf. and he made a mammoth amount of these titles, and it brought back so many memories. So there's another reason to be cheerful and watch that. And then you got LFC Gamer and Vlogs, who did another great vlog and answered one of my questions that I had. And I wanted to know his opinion, because I'm going to do something along similar the question that I asked him with Ian the Ramblings this week in our 50th anniversary. So it's interesting to get his take on what my question was. And then we've got my mate Main Meister, who I always have last, but that's so that you can remember. The last one is always the one that I think people can remember the most, because it's it's the one that you're going to mention the last. He did a Monday night live stream. He did a nice and nasty podcast with his friend Kingy, and he did a Friday waffle live before going off to Arcade Club this weekend. And he's a bit under the weather. He's got a bit of a cold. So it was great just to see so much content coming out from him. And that is the written part of the blog. Only then to tell you about what has arrived this week. And there's been quite a bit arriving, to be quite honest. So we better put overhead cam on, haven't we? First of all, we'll get some of these omnibuses out the way. As I said, they just keep coming through. This one's a Doctor Strange Master of Mystic Arts omnibus. Doctor Strange is a weird one. Done by the creator of art. The art was done by the creator, and the creation of the character was done by the person who created Spider-Man. It was Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. But when Steve Ditko left and Doctor Strange was continuing, he went into his own own comic, rather than be a guest sort of like character in many Marvel comics. So this sort of like starts off that run. So it collects Marvel Premiere 3 to 14, Doctor Strange's own comic 1 to 22 and Annual 1, and Tomb of Dracula number 44, because Doctor Strange did battle Dracula in one of the stories, and a great story it was too, drawn by Gene Colan, that one. So that's marvellous. And then this too, my God, it's heavy. Oh my God, is my character, my main man, Web of Spider-Man. The third monthly comic to come out with the name Spider-Man. There was Amazing Spider-Man, Marvel Team Up, and then we got Web of Spider-Man. And later on we'd get adjectiveness Spider-Man, which is just, in other words, it hasn't got a bit before it like amazing and spectacular and all of that sort of stuff. So, this is the start of a third book. There was Spectacular Spider-Man as well. Team Up, it really, I consider that to be the second book, but this, when they talk about Spider-Man's monthly, they say this is the third. It should actually be the fourth. But anyway, this collects Web of Spider-Man 1 to 34 and Annual 1 to 3, Amazing Spider-Man 268 and 293 to 95, Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man 131 to 133, and no end of artists, writers, inkers throughout all of that. A huge book, slightly more expensive than the others at $125. As you know, I pre-order these and I get them at half price, but it's still an expensive book. Look how thick that is. Marvellous. Really looking forward to opening that up. And then you've got, oh my God, all of the steelbooks and so forth that have come this week. Now, I did mention Mondo, and this is why I think he'll be doing one this week. You may remember that there was a Hammer restoration of Captain Kronos, and it was in a massive box. And this is their second Hammer restoration. So within a month and a half of that coming out, they've done another collection, but it's not quite as deluxe. So this is a Hammer restoration of Four-Sided Triangle. You can see it's still lovely and deluxe. It's got, obviously, a book and the films and some documentaries. Just not in the same sort of mould, and therefore is substantially cheaper as well. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be coming out from Mondo, and I'm looking forward to that. I'll just show you the box a little bit closer. That's the edge. That's the front. That's where you get the discs out with the book. And some spine stuff. Brilliant. Looking forward to that. Here's some steelbooks. From France, Jura #2. Only a Blu-ray, but a lovely looking steelbook. Didn't know that was coming out, although I knew it was coming out on Blu-ray over here in a non-steelbook format. Then there's my main character from classic Doctor Who. This one's called The Savages. It's William Hartnell's 4th season, episode 9, I think. Am I right in that? The 9th serial of the 3rd season. Sorry, there we are. So I was right with the story, wrong with the season. A story that is missing in its entirety from the archives. This one is animated. Absolutely marvellous. Steelbook's quite nice. I buy the steelbooks of Doctor Who. All the animated ones I've got are steelbooks. Marvellous. Again, another foreign one that's come through. You can always tell by the age restriction on it. This one is Trap. I think it's from Germany or France, this particular one. It is N. Night Shyamalan. I can never pronounce his name. An interesting concept. I'm quite looking forward to this one. I didn't see it at the cinema, so I'm really looking forward to that. This one just fills in my collection because last year I got Terrifier 1 and 2. This is Terrifier 3, again from abroad. Nice looking steelbook. Picture of a clown with the blood of the 3. It's a shiny, not dull. The back is equally looking gruesome. It's a 4K edition. I think it's Italian, this one. Again, quite cheap. Amazon abroad generally tend to be a little bit cheaper than the British steelbooks. Then you got Kevin Costner's Horizon, which has only just been shown on Sky this week. This is chapter 1. It's a 3-hour Western film. Really has got some impressive reviews for the picture because it was done with digital cameras, so the 4K really pops. But I think Westerns really do look better when they're done on film. I think it's probably because of the vistas that they use and the colours. They just really look better on film, depending on what type film stock you're using and what camera lenses. This one I'm really looking forward to watching. It's 3 hours long, so I have got to find a time for that. You'll hear me mention this one a number of times. It's The Penguin. It's finally come out on Steelbook and normal release. This is the 10, is it 10 episodes it came out with? I think it was 10, could be 8. 455 minutes on the introduction of the Penguin into Gotham City. It really was very good when it came out. I was riveted when it was shown on the streaming service. And this one is just amazing. You might not think so, but I really love the look of this one as a steelbook. I love the film. I didn't know it was getting a steelbook. It's not in this country from what I can tell. This one is the French edition. You can get it in France and Italy. It is the Substance steelbook, but just look at that. It's a gorgeous steelbook. And then when you turn it round, you've got how the main character looked when she took the substance. Absolutely marvellous. Don't ever feel bad about buying these things from Amazon France or Italy. They're all English language. It's just the case isn't. But look at that for a steelbook. My God. It's actually a steelbook covered already in its plastic perspex case. Lovely. And I had actually a couple of people ask me where I got it from. This was pure accident searching around Amazon for other titles that I wanted to know, were they ever going to get a steelbook release? And that concludes that part of the blog. Now, do I have time for trailers? I don't think I really do, and I do apologise that it's the second week in a row that I haven't done trailers. But I've got a lot of trailers now that are sort of like building up. But I think with my routine, probably getting into a much better routine by next week, I think I'll be able to reintroduce my trailers, so you won't be missing too much. But let's just see if I can get a couple in. Just let me press pause and see if I can set something up. Won't be a moment. Okay, so I've set something up. Yeah, we'll do a couple. There's nothing really amazing here, but at least you've got some trailers from me. So these are films that I've either watched or I've got in my blogs from a couple of weeks previous that have come through in the post. So I'm going to basically shut the mic up for me, and you're going to watch some trailers. Hope you enjoy them.
Hello, world. I'm Aya. I'll do anything to protect you.
Hello, Aya. Welcome home.
Hello, world. So we stick up a bunch of cameras. We call them eyes.
I'm not crazy about having them everywhere.
Honestly, you hardly even notice.
Aya,
Good morning. I'm going to make life nice and easy.
do you think you could read to Cal?
Of course. I could also handle the bills for you.
Yeah.
I'll give out points for helping out around the house, and you can turn those points in for rewards. 10 points for Gryffindor! I ordered an organic meal plan for the kids. I hope that's okay.
So, Aya, what are you?
Think of me like another mom.
I have to go to bed. School day tomorrow. I doesn't get points just for going.
The AI is bribing our children?
I know what you like. I know what you do when you think you're alone.
What is this?
Okay, first it wasn't me.
Everyone sees this. My life is over.
Iris, I've already gotten the video off the internet. I'll take care of him next.
What did you do?
I did what's best for my family. I can show you some videos, but it'll have to be our secret.
Honey? Mama? Daddy?
I'm here, Cal. Do you want to meet my friends?
Yes.
You must promise never to tell.
There is something very wrong with Aya.
Get out of the house, now.
Would you like to see what I look like?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Colin Farrell. Check out the trailer for my new series, The Penguin.
Trust me, it's just the beginning. Come on. You gotta help me up.
Life is just a dream.
You promised me, Oswald.
I know.
I deserve a better life.
I'm working on it. The world ain't set up for the honest man to succeed. That should be the American dream right there. You know, beautiful story with a happy ending. But that ain't the way the world works. America's a hustle. Not that I'm complaining.
Penguin, you waltzing in here like you mean something. We're in the middle of a gang war.
Carmine Falcone's dead.
If we don't protect what's ours, we just look weak. The streets are talking again. They know there's only one man big enough to run this city.
Do you remember Carmine's daughter?
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sophia, I thought you was still at,
Arkham? No. I've been rehabilitated.
You're playing a dangerous game with his family, Aunt. You think I want Sophia Falcone knocking on my door?
She is the hangman.
What is it you're really after, Oz?
I'm gonna tear down the empire from the inside out.
whoever controls the drug business controls the streets. I'll be running the whole damn trade.
I got it, Bishop. I can help you.
Hey! Feel alive, Vic, huh? Feel your heart beating?
This city is meant to be yours, sweetheart. What are you gonna do to get it?
Trust me. It's just the beginning.
All Middle-earth knows the tale of the War of the Ring. But 200 years before that...
Riders of the Mark! Brothers of Rohan!
there was an older tale.
Arise!
We come with an offer to strengthen Rohan.
Hera, daughter of Helm, I, Wolf, seek your hand in marriage.
Our fathers speak as if I were not even in the room. I do not want to marry you.
You do not seek an alliance. You seek a throne. You will live to regret this, old man. He's dead. You will pay for this with your life.
The boy I knew would never wish for war.
The boy you knew is gone.
Fire! There's so many of them. I pledged to fight for my king.
You know nothing of war.
I'm the fastest rider you have.
People need hope, Hera. Something to believe in.
My pride. My joy. You could rule the world.
You think I am afraid of you?
You should be.
What does mortal want with rings?
And now we have reached the end of the blog. Thank you very much for watching. Been a difficult time. I hope this one's a little bit more streamlined than the last one, although it's still very bitty. I'm going to now look after my mum. I've got washing, got ironing to do, and work tomorrow. So busy time. But I'm going to ask a question. Let's see. Yeah, I did read it in this book the other day. Let's see if you can get it as a riddle. It says, "You cannot keep me until you have given me to someone else. What am I?" There we go. That's one in the eye for wee Bob Art. But it's a simple one. Thank you very much and salute till next week. I'm looking forward to my next blog now. even as I press the stop button. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.